If an immigrant can come to the US, build a life, and become the mayor of New York City, you, my friend, can achieve anything.
The new mayor of New York is an ethnic minority, Muslim, immigrant, and anti-Trump. He's got the big piece. I don't care. That's my new president. I'm celebrating all the way here from the UK. You've gained a big fan. I'll be watching all of your work, all your speeches. I don't care. I'm into politics just by a bit, but man, that's my president right there. That's my new president. You've got my vote. I wish I could vote, but I'm not a fan. I'm looking into you, and you're an interesting character. I like you. I like you. I like you. You've got our support in the UK. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. That's our president. That's our president. I'm here in the UK, but that's my president as well. My prime minister. This is our new prime minister.
Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, you're welcome to Building the Verse. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. Alright lovelies, let's dive into today's video.
I have to give it to the New York Post because this is a banger first page. These people genuinely believe that New York is going to get turned into a communist city-state. It's scary. These people can't comprehend the concept of free buses and affordable groceries, so they'll label it communism, which apparently is supposed to be negative.
Now that Mamdani is the mayor of New York City, he still avows that if Netanyahu comes through, he'll be taken from the red carpet to an orange jumpsuit and then to a bed that's not hypoallergenic. Now, experts say he actually doesn't have the authority to do this, but authority has never stopped a New Yorker from screaming at the top of their lungs. Now, it is a bold move because potholes still have diplomatic immunity, and he is a world leader. But New York, I mean, do you guys remember when they banned giant sodas? And they still can't fix the rent crisis, so why not throw International War Crimes Tribunal into the mix?
Americans, pay attention. Zoran Mamdani is a Muslim socialist, and he's gaining ground in New York's mayoral race. This isn't just politics. This is a direct clash with the Constitution and biblical truth. Islam isn't just a religion. It's a political system, one that's fundamentally incompatible with American liberty. And socialism, that replaces dependence on God with dependence on the state. If this man becomes mayor, it sends a message that freedom, truth, and faith no longer matter in this country. We need courage, we need discernment, and we need to speak boldly before it's too late. I'm Arch Kennedy, bold, unfiltered, and unafraid.
Zoran Mamdani is for the people. Zoran Mamdani is a democratic socialist. Zoran Mamdani wants to tax the rich. Zoran Mamdani wants to do this, that, and the third. His middle name is Kwame. When were y'all going to tell me this? Zoran Kwame Mamdani. Zoran Kwame Mamdani. Dude, he a whole ass Indian, like the Indian, Southeast Asian. Like, his parents gave him the middle name Kwame to honor the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. I'm not mad at that. That shit gagged me when I looked at it. This man's middle name is Kwame.
Yesterday, Donald Trump said that I should be arrested. He said that I should be deported. He said that I should be denaturalized. And he said those things about me, someone who stands to be the first immigrant mayor of this city in generations, someone who would also be the first Muslim and the first South Asian mayor in this city's history. Less so because of who I am, because of where I come from, because of how I look or how I speak, and more so because he wants to distract from what I fight for. I fight for working people. I fight for the very people that have been priced out of this city, and I fight for the same people that he said he was fighting for.
Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, you know, we're going to look at everything, and ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right now, he's a communist. We are going to absolutely keep it. And the word that somebody that, like this communist from New York, someday gets elected, I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York, but the rest of the country is revolting against it. But
Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us. When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them. A great New Yorker once said that while you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. If that must be true, let the prose we write still rhyme, and let us build a shining city for all. And we must chart a new path, as bold as the one we have already traveled. After all, the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
Americans are watching another chapter unfold in the uneasy intersection of faith, ideology, and power. The name on the headline, Zoran Mamdani might still be unfamiliar to some outside New York, but his rise in the city mayoral conversation has already drawn national attention. Mamdani, a state assemblyman known for his democratic socialist leanings and outspoken advocacy for marginalized communities, has become a symbol of growing progressive movement that seeks to remake American politics from the ground up. At the same time, former President Donald Trump, still a commanding figure within conservative circles, remains determined to reassassinate his vision of American identity, one defined by nationalism, law and order, and a strict reading of the Constitution. Rumors and rhetoric about legal or political action against progressive figures like Mamdani have fueled debate across social media and talk shows, illustrating just how polarized and the nation remains. This story isn't really about one politician versus another. It's about what kind of country the United States wants to be. It's about whether the ideas of pluralism, freedom of religion, and open debate can survive the growing instincts to treat politics as a zero-sum war. New York City has long been a laboratory for political experimentation. It's where immigrant energy meets financial power, where globalism collides with local struggle. When someone like Mamdani enters that stage, a Muslim, a socialist, a millennial voice challenging corporate influence, it triggers strong emotional responses from all sides. Supporters hail him as proof that Americans' diversity still fuels democracy. Critics see him as a symbol of crippling radicalism and government overreach. Trump, meanwhile, is not merely an observer. His base sees New York as both birthplace and battleground, the city that knows him best and rejects him most fiercely. Every confrontation between Trump's movement and progressive politics becomes, in some way, a fight for the soul of the American experiment. The tension between religious identity and political ideology isn't new. From the colonial debate about the separation of church and state to the cold warfare of communism replacing faith with state control, Americans have always wrestled with how belief and governance coexist. Mamdani's presence as a Muslim socialist evokes echoes of those earlier anxieties, but it also reflects how the nation has changed. For much of U.S. history, candidates outside the Christian mainstream faced suspicious. John F. Kennedy's Catholicism was a campaign issue in 1960. Now, a Muslim elected official running for major office reflects how the definition of American continues to expand, yet expansion doesn't erase fear. It simply changes its form. Today, public trust in institutions, governments, media, even the church sits near historic lows. That vacuum of trust has become the perfect environment for ideological extremes. The right worries about cultural erosion and the loss of the traditional values. The left worries about systemic inequality and entrenched privilege. Both sides believe the other threatens democracy itself. So when a politician like Mamdani talks about redistributing wealth or defunding certain law enforcement practices, conservatives hear echoes of failed socialist experiment abroad. And when Trump's allies talk about restoring order or taking back the city, progressives hear warnings of authoritarian control. In that context, every soundbite becomes a spark in the dry grass. The United States has always been a nation built on contradiction, liberty and law, individualism and community, faith and secularism. Those tensions are not flaws in the design, they are the design. But in moments of cultural stress, those opposing forces stop complementing each other and start colliding. The class surrounding Zoran Mamdani's rise and Donald Trump's reaction sits right in the middle of that collision. Listen carefully to the historic on both sides and you can almost hear two separate moral vocabularies. For progressive, words like equality, inclusion, and justice are moral imperative, signs that government should act to level the playing field. For conservative, words like freedom, responsibility, and faith carry the same weight, signaling a moral duty to protect personal autonomy from government reach. When a socialist candidate proposes rent control or higher taxes on luxury real estate, it isn't just a fiscal argument is a moral one. That society owns fairness to the many rather than privilege to the few. To his critics, those same policies sound like punishment for success and a slow erosion of free enterprise. The divide, then, is not only about policy, it's about the very definition of virtue. What does it mean to be a good citizen, to be free, to care for one's neighbor? These questions, once debated in town halls or churches, now unfold on TikTok clips and cable news panels. Condensed into seconds and tripled of nuisance, the war of socialism has always carried emotional weight in America. For older generations, it recalls the Cold War, Soviet flags, ration lies, and warnings of lost freedom. For younger voters, it increasingly means affordable healthcare, tuition fee college, and a livable wage. The same word carries two entirely different mental pictures depending on who is hearing it. Mamdani and other democratic socialists try to emphasize the democratic half. They argue for using collective resources through the democratic concept to address inequality, oppose fear that even well-intentioned socialism leads to bureaucratic control and moral decay. Trump's brand of populism feeds on that fear. He frames himself as the protector of hardworking Americans against radicals who want to dismantle capitalism. Whether one agrees or not, the strategy works politically because it simplifies a complex debate into a clear moral drama. Builders versus destroyers, patriotic versus revolutionaries. Then there's the religious dimension. The United States is not a theocracy, yet faith still saturates its public life. President swears oaths on Bibles. Congress opens with prayer. Most Americans, regardless of domination, view religion as a source of moral compass, even if they disagree on its application. When a Muslim politician rises in prominence, those habits of thought collide with unfamiliar imagery. Many voters lacking personal experience with Islam conflate it with foreign political systems, where religion and state intervene. That misunderstanding easily becomes suspicious. But Islam in America is not a monolith. Billions of Muslim citizens serve in the military, run small businesses, and hold public office. Their faith, like any other, manifests in personal ethics more than public law. Mamdani's politics stem from a secular socialist framework, not religious doctrine. Yet his faith's identity inevitably shapes public perception. Some inspired by diversity, others alarmed by difference. This dynamic reveals a deeper truth. Americans' debate about religion in politics has never been purely about theology. It's about trust. Whose values can we trust to govern fairly? Who belongs inside the image circle of real Americans? The answer shifts with every generation. The founding generation anticipated this dynamo. They built a system that protected both freedom of religion and freedom from it. The First Amendment doesn't require politicians to hide their beliefs, but it forbids the state from elevating one faith over another. That balance has always been delicate. In the 19th century, Catholic immigrants were accused of loyalty to the Pope over the Constitution. In the 21st century, Muslim candidates face similar doubts about alliances. History suggests those doubts usually fed as familiarity grows, but only after years of suspicion and struggle. Modern media rarely allows that slow process of understanding. Algorithms reward outrage, not reflection. A single clip, say Mamdani criticizing police budget or Trump promising to crack down on radicals, can travel across millions of screens in minutes, stripped of tunes or nuisance. Each side then fills in the blanks with its own fears. The result is a digital echo chamber where Americans no longer disagree on fact or on realities. In one reality, Mamdani represents compassionate reform. In another, he represents crippled totalitarianism. In one reality, Trump is defending constitutional order. In another, he is threatening it. Both realities feel alright to those inside them. Yet, step outside the headlines and you meet voters whose lives doesn't fit neatly into any ideological box. The small business owners in Queens who likes Mamdani's housing ideas but fears higher taxes. The churchgoer in Texas who supports Trump's economic policy but worries about his history. The teacher in Ohio who wants universal healthcare but dislikes the word socialism. These ordinary voices remind us that democracy's strength lies not in uniformity but in disagreement managed with civility. The real danger isn't that Americans argue, is that they stop listening altogether. Political polarization has measurable cost. Studies show that Americans increasingly avoid friendship, marriages, and even workplace where political views defy churches, split, neighborhoods clustered by ideology. The public square that once blended backgrounds now fractures into fortified camps. This fragmentation weakens governance. Lawmakers spend more time performing for their base than collaborating on solutions. When every compromise is branded as betrayal, a progress stalls and frustration grows. That frustration then fuels the next wave of populist anger, whether on the left or the right. Seen through that lens, Trump Mamdani controversy is less a unique event than a mirror held up to the country. It reflects long-standing anxieties about identity, belonging, and the future of capitalism. It forces Americans to confront an uncomfortable question: can a nation built on pluralism still function when its citizens no longer share a common definition of truth? The answer depends not on politicians but on the public conversations itself. If Americans can learn to debate ideas without demoralizing the people who hold them, the republic endures. If not, every election becomes another referendum on the other side's right to exist. No discussion of American politics in the 2020s can avoid Donald Trump. Whether people admire him or despise him, he remains the gravitational center of conservative movements, and often the national conversation itself. His influence on the right has reshaped not only the Republican Party but the entire political playing field. To understand Trump's response to progressive figures like Zoran Mamdani, one has to look beyond the headlines and into the architecture of his political style. Trump is not a traditional conservative in the policy sense. He is a populist in the emotional sense. His appeal lies in a promise to fight for forgotten Americans who feel neglected by both parties. That framing allows him to transform nearly any opponent into a stand-in for the establishment, the elite, or the radical left. A young socialist from New York becomes a convenient symbol of everything his supporters believe threatens their way of life: urban liberalism, multiculturalism, and state-driven economies. Whether accurate or not, that symbolism fuels his narrative of resistance. Every clash gives Trump an opportunity to remind his base that he alone speaks for them against the force of change. Since his first campaign, Trump has anchored his image in law and order. It's a phrase with deep roots in American politics used by presidents from Nixon to Reagan, but Trump will use it in a more personal way. For him, law and order often means loyalty and control. When he speaks of taking action or holding people accountable, it can sound to critics less like governance and more like retribution. So when talk surfaces about Trump trying to arrest a figure like Mamdani, most analysts interpret it as a political theater rather than literal instance. Still, when historical threats carry weight, they signal to supporters that opponents are not simply wrong but criminal. That shift from debate to criminalization erodes the idea of legitimate opposition on which democracy depends. On the other hand, Trump's allies argue that accountability should apply equally to everyone, including progressive politicians who, in their view, overstep legal boundaries. They see investigations or legal actions as checks on power, not as intimidation. This disagreement lies not only in the fact that, but in the moral lens through which each side views justice. Modern American politics lives in a gray area between law and spectacle. Prosecutors, pundits, and politicians often use legal language to shape public opinion long before a courtroom ever enters the picture. Trump himself faces multi-legal battles, some criminal, some civil, which makes any talk of arresting others especially charged. To his critics, his hypocrites, a man under investigation threatening others with persecution. To his supporters, his defiance, a leader refusing to bow to what they perceive as a corrupt system. Either way, the episode illustrates a troubling pattern: how easily legal processes become tools of political messaging. Every subpoena, every indictment, every linked memo becomes content in the endless online war for narrative control. The real struggle is not just over law but over legitimacy. Who gets to decide what counts as justice, who is protecting democracy, and who is weaponizing it? Trump's team has mastered the art of turning every accusation into a bandage of authenticity. To them, establishment outrage proves they are over the target. That inversion of traditional norms, where scandal threatens rather than weakness, has redefined American campaigning. For figures like Mamdani, this creates a paradox. Engaging with Trump amplifies him. Ignoring him risks looking weak. So progressive face the same dilemma conservative ones faced during the Obama years: how to confront an opposing worldview without feeding it power through attention. At the heart of this struggle lies America's institutional resiliency. The court, Congress, the press, all we are designed to check each other to athletes' personality. But the institution rely on public faith. When half the country believes the courts are political and the other half believes the media is, the very idea of neutral authority collapses. Trump's critics worry that his rhetoric undermines the faith by portraying institutions as enemies of the people. His supporters counter that institutions lost credibility long before Trump, and that distrust is a rational response to atheism. Both sides in different ways chip away at the same foundation. Strip away the slogans and this is still a human story. Trump is a man who strives on combat, measuring resilience by resistance. Mamdani is a young politician testing whether moral conviction can survive in a cyclical system. Both are navigating the same chaotic media landscape that rewards extremists and punishes retreats. Their collision is less about personal relationship. There is none, and more about each represent to millions of Americans. One side sees Trump as the last line of defense against a cultural revolution, and the other sees Mamdani as a proof that pluralism and Congress can coexist. The clash between them symbolizes a country divided not only by ideology but by imagination. By difference, the legal tension between Trump's populism and progressive activists teaches a broader lesson about power. It's always easier to attack than to govern. Campaigning runs on conflict. Governing requires compromise. Both Trump and Mamdani energize the bases by confronting the status quo. But sooner or later, both must answer the same question. Can ideas survive machineries of power? Democracy depends on the answer being yes, but history suggests it's really simple. The louder the applause for confrontation, the harder collaboration becomes. And that brings us to the next layer of this story: how the media and the public are processing these confrontations. The coverage around Trump and Mamdani isn't just reporting, it's shaping perception, emotion, and even policy. In the next session, we turn from the courtroom and campaign stage to the widened arena of public opinion, where outrage becomes a currency and every headline deepens the divide. Politics today doesn't unfold quietly in the halls of government. It happens in the real time of millions of screams, reactions to Zoran Mamdani, to Donald Trump, and to the supposed conflict between them are not just formed by policy debates. They are manufactured, accelerated, and amplified by the modern information machine. If the 20th century was the age of television speech, the 21st is the age of the viral clip. Ideas no longer compete for the attention, they compete for outrage. The digital platform that promised to democratize communication have instead created the loudest echo chamber in history. Every user becomes both an audience and a broadcaster, sending fragments of information across networks designed to reward intensive over accuracy. When Mamdani speaks about housing rights or wealth inequality, a few seconds of her remarks may be clipped and shared with a caption that turns nuisance into provocation. Likewise, when Trump makes an offhand comment about locking up radicals, it reconnects through conservative field as a rally cry and through a liberal field as evidence of extremism. The same words, stripped of contents, ignite two entirely opposite fires. This is not unique to them, it's the logic of algorithm itself. Platform optimized for engagement, not enlightenment. The angrier people get, the longer they stay online. As a result, the loudest voice, not the most reasonable shape perception. At the end of the day, the story here is not about one man's fate or another's populism. It's about the unfinished work of liberty, a work that every generation must renew. Zoran Mamdani's rise shows that America still allows unlikely voice to reach power. Donald Trump's endurance shows that millions still crave authenticity, even if it's fluid. Both in their own ways prove that the American spirit, loud messiah defense, is still alive. The question is not whether America can survive this polarization, it's whether it can evolve through it. Because the truth is, democracy isn't a destination, it's a contest test. And every controversy, every debate, every division is another chance for the country to decide, will fear defy us or will freedom verify us? That choice belongs not to politicians but to the people.
And if you have watched up to this extent, thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. Alright, lovely. See you when I upload the next video.